Welcome to Kung Fu Havoc number 2. For reference on what I'm talking about, go watch part 1 of why superhero comics or why comics aren't why native heroes aren't as known as black heroes or white heroes and even a few Asian heroes. Anyway, as I said in the last video, Marvel, DC, Image, and most importantly, independent comics are not pushing native characters to the forefront. Like I said, in G.I. Joe, you had Charlie Ironknife. You guys know him as Spirit. He had a falcon, he had an eagle named Freedom. He was the only Native American member. He was the only Native American member in the entire G.I. Joe team. You had a few Asians. You had Tunnel Rat. You had Storm Shadow, and you had Jinx. You also had not Pathfinder. I can't think of his name, but he's the guy with the Hawaiian hat. No, it's kind of like funny looking hat. I have the action figure. I just can't remember his name, but he was Asian, and so you have yay so many Asians, yay so many blacks, yay so many whites, but you don't have but one Native American, which was Charlie Ironknife, aka Spirit. Then when you get into deeper Marvel comics, you have your X-Men. You have at least four who were actual X-Men, all right? Because technically Forge is a part-timer, all right? So you have Forge, you have Danielle Moonstar, you had James Proudstar, and you had John Proudstar, all right? You didn't really have anybody else, you know? And in my last video, I pretty much made a mistake and said that Echo was an X-Men, so I'm wrong, and I'm sorry. Then if you go into Alpha Flight, which if you go up north, you have Talisman, Shaman, and Snowbird. And if you go to other Canadian hero, anti-hero, questionable hero, you have Silver Fox, who's also a native. But they only pushed those characters in X-Men books. They rarely gave them solos. They rarely gave them specific tribal things or stuff like that, except for you understood that Proudstar died on a mission. Banshee couldn't save him. The other Proudstar was angry because first his village was destroyed, and then he was also already pissed off that Xavier allowed his brother to die. Moonstar was in a whole different level of stuff by herself, and then there's this Forge, so yeah, you're screwed. Now Snowbird, on the other hand, she was a goddess, you know, before Marvel stopped letting gods be the most powerful character in their comics, which I'm gonna make a video about that because that pisses me off. Anyway, moving on. Then when Disney bought Marvel, they let Elisa, Peter Mazza, Derek, and Beth Mazza be in there. They left them off that list, by the way. I'm just adding that in there because Peter Mazza is the actual real native. His three children are mixed with black. All right, so therefore they're technically Afro-Indigenous, but or they're mixed native, like I like to be called. Now, then as you go further down the line, Red Wolf 1 and 2, their stories are questionable. I never picked up a Red Wolf book. You have Black Crow. I know him, but I never picked up a Black Crow book. American Eagle. I don't have any American Eagle books, but I know who he is. I have read them. No, I just didn't buy them, which is on me. Same thing with Wyatt Wingfoot. The only reason I know Wyatt Wingfoot is because Wyatt Wingfoot is always around the Fantastic Four. And if you read in the Fantastic Four comics, you will bound to find Wyatt Wingfoot in there. You also find him in the She-Hulk comics because they dated for a while. I don't know if they're still dating. I don't know if it's going to affect the show or anything like that. And if it does, in Disney, if you need a Native American, and if the model isn't too tall, the She-Hulk, I'm down. But you may have to rewrite some things and give Wyatt Wingfoot an actual tribe to come from. Now, you get to Puma, who's a bad guy in Spider-Man, There it is. And then you get to, the fuck is his damn name? Private J. Little Bear. And then you also have the Apache Kid, which is also not on that list. But he does exist. He's just not on that list. Apache Kid, not Apache Chief. Apache Chief is DC. For some reason, oh yeah, you have Scalp Hunter. He's a bad guy. In case I didn't say that before. You have so many different native characters, but Marvel has not pushed that many to the front. like they've done with the ones that I just named. Even Silver Fox didn't even get her own saga, so that you can origin her versus Wolverine and Maverick and Sabretooth, because they did a lot of retconning. They did a lot of fucking retconning with Wolverine. Right? Just in case you guys don't understand, they did a fuck ton of retconning with Wolverine and Sabretooth. Because before, Wolverine and Sabretooth were not related. They were identical in almost every way except for Sabretooth was taller. And then Sabretooth got fixed by Sinister, which bulked him up. Sabretooth was never that big. Sabretooth was a scrawny fucker. He was just taller than Wolverine. And Sabretooth could never beat Wolverine's ass before the 90s. Alright? Before the cartoon came out, and Sabretooth wasn't all that bulky, he was a marauder. He worked with freaking Scalp Hunter. Scalp Hunter was the leader, and Sabretooth couldn't beat his ass. So, when they retconned all that shit, they making it like Sabretooth was never a marauder. And that him and Wolverine were brothers or father and son and all this other bullshit. They retconned the fuck out of the 616 Sabretooth. And I don't think that's cool, but what's done is done. I don't work for Marvel. Now, when you get down to business, the Weapon X program was all kinds of fucked up. And when you watch the cartoon versus reading the comic book of how it happened, but it didn't happen, but then it happened, but it didn't happen, and then you actually find out that it actually did happen. Everything that Wolverine and Silver Fox went through was real. But then you find out, okay, well, how did Sabretooth go from being burly gigantic to really small back to being burly gigantic? Because Sabretooth and Wolverine supposedly were partners doing the Weapon X thing with Maverick and Silver Fox. But the only people you can really focus on is Silver Fox and Wolverine and Sabretooth, and you totally leave Maverick out in the dirt. But again, we did a lot of fucking retconning, because if that was the case, and then Wolverine was always getting his ass kicked by Sabretooth after that, and you're like, wait a minute, but when you read this book versus when you read this book, because when you read the X-Men, Sabretooth was no match for Wolverine, period. In 86 to 89, Sabretooth never was able to beat Wolverine's ass. I know, I got off track. But the only reason I brought that up was because of Silver Fox, which Sabretooth supposedly killed her. And then you find out that he didn't kill her, and it was all programming. And then they erased Wolverine's mind after all the simulated training. And then you find out that every mission he was on was real. And the love that he had for Silver Fox was real. So then you're like, just, okay, fuck it. You guys see why I stopped reading comics, right? Because they go down too many rabbit holes and they leave too many plot holes and they don't fucking fix them. Well, they stopped fixing them after the 90s. Alright? That's when Marvel stopped giving a shit, was in the 90s. Because, you know, as you reached the early 2000s, X-Men went in a completely different direction. I was like, nah, if they don't fix this shit back, I'm done. And they didn't fix it. So I was done. By 2010, I stopped reading X-Men. I honestly think I stopped reading X-Men in 2008. When they started going through all this bullshit. But again, Marvel did not push the native characters. You know, how many of y'all actually know how to say Snowbird's name? Nyra? I can't even say it, but I know that it starts with an N. Shaman's name is Michael Two Youngman. Talisman, her name is Elizabeth Two Youngman. Danielle Moonstar is Dark Rider's real name. Forge doesn't have any other name but Forge. I don't know why they did that, but there it is. James and John Proudstar are Warpath and Thunderbird. See where we're going? Any more native stacking name? No. Silver Fox is her name. No. If she has a real name, I don't know what it is. Let's see if Google does. What is Marvel Comics' Silver Fox name?
According to Marvel Database, fandom, Zora de Plata, Fox.
Okay, Zora de Plata Fox. See, I've never known that. I've always known her as Silver Fox. Now let's see what happens when you click on this part. It says Silver Fox. This is Marvel Database. Click on what's her name. What's Silver Fox's real name? It says Silver Fox. I know you guys can't see that, but there it is. It says Silver Fox. Now, let's go to her Wikipedia page. Silver Fox is a fictional character in Marvel Comics. She is currently works on the terrorist organization of Hydra. She was never a member of Hydra before, but apparently she's a member of Hydra now. Also known as the formula love interest of Wolverine. She's a mutant. Her alter ego is Kayla. I remember they mentioning that when her and Wolverine were together in the movie Wolverine. Alright? But, let's see. She is the first Blackfoot nation. She is First Nations Blackfoot Confederacy. Okay, so we know that she's a native. We already know she's a native. But we also, it has her allegedly murdered by Wolverine on his birthday. I mean, murdered by Sabretooth on Wolverine's birthday. Which would be kind of messed up because Wolverine doesn't remember his birthday. But that being said, let's go to her mutant powers and abilities. Silver Fox possesses the power of accelerated healing and age suppression, allowing her to restrain her youth years after she separated from Logan. So, now you know that much about her. But that's it. And the only thing that she really served as was a piece of ass for Wolverine and his love interest. But then you don't get too deep into it. And what do? They turn into a fucking bad guy. Because Hydra's the bad guys. Remember that. Hydra is the bad guys. So, what else do you get out of that? You get nothing. And then the simple fact that they aren't pushing native characters. Rather you be a fan of Marvel or DC. They are not pushing native characters to the forefront. Which is why when I get on these comic book people's pages that I follow on TikTok and I ask them about certain native characters, they're like, who the fuck is that? Who the fuck is that? I'm like, you don't know who Scalp Hunter is? One of the biggest pain in the asses to the X-Men, but you don't know who he is? Or when I ask, do you guys know who Snowbird is and what her powers are, besides shapeshifting because she's a goddess and you Inuit, but she was in that pile of Inuit people who didn't get to cross through the spiritual realm or whatever. They were locked in or whatever. Her mom somehow tricked somebody out and she had a baby with a normal person or whatever, and Snowbird was born. Alright? And at one point in time, her body was given to Walter Lankowski, making him a female version of Sasquatch. It's a long story. You'll have to go get into it, because the first time I picked it up, it's like, what the fuck happened to Sasquatch? What the fuck happened to Snowbird? And apparently I need to go back and find all the issues before that. Yeah, Alpha Flight's a good read, y'all. If you like X-Men, you'll love Alpha Flight. Well, let me rephrase that. If you love X-Men, you will actually like Alpha Flight. Alright? I didn't get too many Beta Flights, Omega Flights, or Gamma Flights because I didn't know they were spinoffs. I really didn't know they existed until like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. So I definitely will have to ask the comic book store about that. I will have to write that shit down because I'm not going to remember this conversation. But, you know, as I said, like for DC Comics, I just learned about Scalp Hunter. What did I learn today? That he was not biologically a native. He's technically a white man with native culture, native history, native tribal stuff. So I guess he would technically be considered the $10 Indians or whatever they call natives or whatever. But for me, it's okay because he's still native. He still has the culture. He still fights for native rights and all the other shit. Now, the thing about Apache Chief. I grew up with Apache Chief, but I also didn't know I was part native. So Enoch Chuck. And the thing about that, I'm going to say this, I'm going to piss everybody off, but I'm going to say it. Of all the names that you can name native heroes, and this goes to Marvel and DC. For Marvel, the Apache Kid. Y'all could not give him a fucking decent name. You're going to call him his tribe and a kid. For DC, which is probably more Hanna-Barbera's fault than DC, y'all couldn't give him a better name other than let's name him his tribe and give him high-ranking name as of Chief. So for those who thought of the names, Apache Chief and Apache Kid, shame on you both. Y'all couldn't do anything better than that. You just, oh, well, he's Apache. Let's call him Apache Kid. Oh, he's Apache. Let's call him Apache Chief. Really? You couldn't find an Apache word for hero? You couldn't, like, go talk to some Apaches and ask them, what should we name him? I know you couldn't name him Geronimo because that's a historical figure, but you could make a comic about Geronimo. Both Marvel and DC could do that because both Marvel and DC have both done Star Trek as well as Star Wars. So, now I believe that Marvel is specifically owning the rights to Star Wars. So no more Star Wars for DC. I think like if they have a contract, then that's fine. But you know how these things work. We all know how Marvel versus DC turned out. It didn't really favor, and somebody still owes somebody some money. But I'm sure they can probably pay them all back now with their MCU money. Now, when you get into all these native characters and you start asking other people who read comics, like, do you know who Danielle Moonstar is? They'll be like, yeah, I know Moonstar. I know her as Dark Rider, or what the fuck was her code name in New Mutants? Mirage. So I know who her is by them. I don't remember her when she became a Valkyrie. That's when she started becoming Dark Rider. Her horse, she always had that horse. She had that horse before she became a Valkyrie. And technically, it's not a horse, it's an alicorn. But she had the horse that had wings since she was a member of New Mutants. They never really emphasized the white horse that much, but when she left New Mutants, she took her fucking horse with her. Now, we know that she's Cheyenne. We know that she has a psychic bow and arrow. She didn't have that when she first became a New Mutant. She got that after she became a Valkyrie. But I'm sure a lot of people don't know about that shit. And then she became a Dark Valkyrie, which is how she became Dark Rider. Now, all this shit's probably been retconned. And I can be wrong. I don't have a problem being wrong. I'm pretty sure somebody who's a Marvel fanatic is probably going to come in the comments and screw me up. But Moonstar had names that matches her powers. Dark Rider's my favorite name. Mirage is because her powers, for those who do not know, Danielle Moonstar's power was the ability to peer into your nightmares and manifest your nightmares to reality, which is cool as fuck. Which if I had any power, that would be the power. Which generally made her enemies like run in fear or fuck themselves up and shit like that. I forgot what Real Wolf's powers is. I forgot what Black Crow's powers is. I forgot what American Eagle's powers is. Why Wingfoot doesn't have any powers. But you see where I'm going? Forge has the ability to fix shit out of nothing. Scalp Hunter, same fucking ability. I don't know if Archlight or Arclight is a native at all, and it didn't give me anything on Wikipedia. So I'm gonna have to ask Marvel. But they probably retconned it so that she could be whatever that they want her to be. This thing in my shoe is a tag that's for some reason irritating the shit out of my foot. Anyway, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Anyway, then if you focus like going back to DC Comics, Apache Chief, he sprinkled some dirt on his head and grew. They couldn't give him anything else but a nupchuck as a magic word, and he grew. I guess when he grows, they don't explain that he must be bulletproof or his skin thickens or something, because people have shot at Apache Chief on the TV show, and he picked up grizzly bears and moved them to other planes of existence. And then apparently Giganta, I guess they retconned her because in the cartoon she was never an ape, but they made her from an ape into a woman, and somehow she stole the magic pouch from Apache Chief. I have no idea what the fuck was going on there. And I think they did it again in Justice League Unlimited. But I remember Giganta being a woman and exploring and stealing the pouch from the medicine man that was Apache Chief, his elder or whatever. So like I say, and again, for some reason, all these comic people, unless it's an independent, are not pushing native characters to the forefront. And it fucking sickens me that nobody at Marvel or DC has said, we got all these characters. Why aren't we doing something with them? And I need a job. As an actor, I'll gladly play the native character, whichever one from Marvel or DC. I prefer Marvel, but I'll take what I can get because I've been in this business for 21 years with no success whatsoever. But enough about me. I want to know why they aren't pushing the native characters to the forefront. They really aren't. I mean, American Eagle did okay to the forefront. And his power is magical, by the way. Just remembered it. Wyatt Wingfoot, again, not any powers, but he dates a superpowered lawyer named Jennifer Walters, who, a.k.a. becomes the She-Hulk due to blood transfusion. Now, what is the other, let's see, I forgot what Black Crow does, but I was always thrown back how American Eagle has a crossbow instead of an actual bow. I'm like, How do you have that? Because in America, we didn't have crossbows. Natives had the regular bows. I don't know why he has a crossbow, but natives had regular bows. So that was like, I guess, something. But he does have a headdress, you know, and that's cool. But of late, with the retconning, they took away the headdress, gave him a motorcycle and a helmet. But I forgot what else they did to him. But like I said, again, they haven't really pushed him to the forefront, you know. And I'm like, wow, man, why don't you guys do something with these native characters? I can't really speak much on DC because, like I said, I'm more Marvel than DC. I don't hate DC, but DC hasn't really given me a lot of things that I want to read because they generally stick with. If you're a DC fan, here's where I piss you off because DC generally sticks with. You have the Justice League, and then you have solo members from the Justice League. You have Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batman, Green Lantern, Martian Manhunter, and Superman. Those books solo. Oh yeah, I left off the Flash. You have those guys that seem to run DC, and their side characters, not just sidekicks, but their side characters like Doctor Fate, um, Edragan, um, Vigilante. I can't say much about Black Canary, but as far as Catman and them, their books are out there and they're good reads, but they don't push those side characters up until Justice League Unlimited, where they just start pulling in everybody. You would not know who these motherfuckers were. You would not know Vigilante. You would not know Booster Gold. You would, well, some people would, but a lot of people don't. Just like when Justice League Unlimited came in and they introduced you to Vigilante, Stargirl, they introduced you to the robot that's with Stargirl, her stepfather, Pat. They introduced you to other variations or variants of other superheroes. Otherwise, you would have never known that shit. Just like Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, does not have a power ring. I forgot what the fuck his powers is. I think he might have a power ring. I'm not really sure, but I know he's not native. You know, and Justice League Unlimited didn't introduce you to any natives until what the fuck is that black lady's name? Whatever the hell her name is, Waller had the clones, and then the Justice League had to come in and rescue the clone that was native. So they're not pushing the native narrative either, and then none of the natives really address native issues. Now in X-Men cartoon, X-Men Evolution, they did bring Danielle Moonstar in. Her powers went haywire because she was knocked out unconscious. I can't remember what X-Men, I think it was Kitty that she talked to, that led them to save her. And she went into a cave and got knocked out. And she was in the cave for like 2 or 3 days unconscious. But her essence led Kitty Pryde and them to save her. So you have to go back and find X-Men Evolution. But while we're on X-Men, in the 90s, the 90s X-Men fucked up a lot of shit. All right, they literally, the only thing I'm gonna say they had right, besides the identities, was Henry McCoy. But they didn't show him before he got blue. They automatically made him blue. Mimic was changed to what the fuck is his damn name? Morph. Morph was technically Mimic, but Fox and them had a deal to make Morph their character so that he could be there. But it was like, we're going to kill him off, but we'll let Fox have their baby, and you got Morph. But Mimic actually is a character, just like fucking Morph, whose story is slightly similar, but, I guess Fox wanted that deal. And then after that, you had, I'm sorry about that, y'all. Then you had Jubilee. Jubilee is the only one they really got it right. And Beast, they really got it right. But here's how this works. Chronologically, Psylocke was an X-Men by this time. Gambit wasn't. And let me put you to the order of X-Men before the 90s cartoon dropped. This is the X-Men that were on the X-Men team, which were not in the cartoon. Havoc was not in the cartoon. Cyclops was not an X-Men anymore, because him, Jean Grey, Beast, and Iceman and Angel were all members of X Factor. So the X-Men that were X-Men were Logan, Wolverine, Storm, because she was the leader. You had Havoc, you had Rogue, you had Dazzler, you had Psylocke, and you had Colossus. And you had Jubilee. You would have had Polaris, but she became a Marauder because I forgot how, but somehow or another, somebody took control of her body, cut off the part that was Polaris, and made her a fucking Marauder. I don't know how they got her. I can't remember. I will have to Google that. And matter of fact, let's do that right now. How did Polaris of the X-Men become a Marauder? God damn it. This thing says Dolores, not Polaris. Oh, you motherfucker. Let's see what it says. Polaris. Magneto's other daughter, by the way. Fictional character, blah, blah, blah. Sister. Where is the part where she became a Marauder? I know you're thinking, this has nothing to do with natives. It really doesn't, but it really does. Because the freaking damn Marauders came in there. Alright, so I'm going to push on Malice. Malice the Marauder. Okay, so Malice the Marauder possessed Polaris. Alright, alter ego Allison McAllister. Alright. I know you see my damn light. Psychic energy destroying the Crocker preserves energy paralysis. Hops through the bodies of numerous X-Men, including Dazzler, Wolverine, Rogue, Storm. Storm's will was too strong, and Malice was ejected by her body. After possessing Polaris, she single-handedly defeated all of the Marauder teammates, entering her place in the field leader of the Marauders. Alright, so apparently Malice possessed Polaris. This is Malice. Because somehow or another, it didn't say when she got a hold of Polaris' body. I gotta do more research. But, yeah. Apparently Polaris is Magneto's daughter, which we already knew. And she had a relationship with the X-Men Havoc, which Malice ended that and forced Havoc to be in love with Madeline Pryor. And I don't know if Polaris ever got her body back. No. I will have to Google that. Like really, really soon. But for right now, we're not going to do that. We're going to stay on topic on why Marvel and DC and Image and Dark Horse aren't pushing native characters forward versus their other non-native indigenous characters. And I think that a lot of that is they don't believe that native people read comic books. Hi, I'm part native. I read comic books. I also need a job. So Disney Plus, Marvel, give me a job. Give me a show. Of course, with the background noise in this video, I'm pretty sure you're not going to give me a job because you hear people cussing and things, and that wasn't me this time. But that being said, I think that a lot of reason is they believe that it's not going to sell. How about you give it a try? Also, how about you have a person of native descent promote the comics that have natives in it? No, because that might help if they see a face that looks like theirs. Because a lot of the cartoons also didn't bring natives in. And if you watch the 90s intro, why is Warpath the bad guy? You know? And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to make a separate video about the 90s X-Men in a minute. I'm going to close this video because I've had you for 30 minutes and I jumped off track a little bit. So that's going to be why I make the 90s video of the X-Men. But that being said, I'm Echo Fangray Wolf. Go discover Marvel's, DC's, Image, and Dark Horse, and any other comic that has a native character. please, so we can talk about it. I'm Echo Fan Grey Wolf. That being said, this is Kung Fu Havoc number 2. Be seeing you.